Best-selling author Elizabeth Gilbert has decided not to publish her new novel after attracting criticism because it is set in Russia. The author of the huge hit Eat, Pray, Love was poised to publish a historical novel based on the true story of the Lykov family who spent more than 40 years living an incredibly isolated existence in Siberia. However, Gilbert has decided not to publish the book after all due to the negative reaction it garnered from her fans in Ukraine, some of whom were unhappy about the depiction of the country which has invaded their own. Laura Dodsworth, author of upcoming book Free Your Mind, has written a fascinating article about this, and she joins me now. Welcome. So, first of all, why has Elizabeth Gilbert taken this path?
Well, it depends if you want to take what she has said at face value or maybe read a bit more into it. So she's released a video on social media, and as of this afternoon, that had been watched 7.5 million times on Twitter, and, you know, it's across her socials, saying that when she announced that she was publishing The Snow Forest, she received an outpouring of negative emotion from Ukrainian readers, and she's decided to listen to them, hear them, and withdraw the book indefinitely. Now, what actually happened was she got hundreds of negative reviews left on Goodreads. As all authors know, Goodreads is an important source of reviews and ultimately leads to books. So, you know, is she listening to the sensitivities of Ukrainian readers, or is she maybe pandering to the sensibilities of Western liberals and thinking about the bottom line?
Aha, how very cynical of you. But if it was that she was doing it because of criticism from Ukrainian readers, and I'm sure they've got a lot more to be focusing on at the moment, surely it's now backfired because she's received a lot more criticism from people saying that this is self-censorship.
Yeah, she has received a huge amount of negative reactions from having withdrawn the book. And I think really rightly so, because literature should be defended at all times, including wartime. The really strange thing about her decision to withdraw this book is it wasn't a manifesto for Putin. You know, it didn't condone Russia's war in Ukraine. She hadn't pledged her profits to Putin. It's basically a fictional book based on a real family who actually chose to escape Russian society to live apart from the Russian regime. And if we take this kind of decision to its illogical end, you know, where does it go? Do we have to stop reading or buying books set in Russia in the future, or books written in the past? Where does it leave Dostoevsky, Chekhov and Tolstoy?
Right, I'm not Andrew Doyle, so I don't know who those people are.
What about, OK, there's a fantastic book, I know you're joking, The Gulag Archipelago, written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You know, that's set in Russia. Are we allowed to read that? So she's making a decision which sounds like it's based on feelings, but it's really intellectually unsound. Because if you take it to the conclusion, she's basically saying that books are dangerous. Books aren't dangerous. Books are the bastion of liberty, which means that writers have a responsibility to be artistically true as well as intellectually courageous. And I think the reason that this has provoked a big backlash is it feels like it's cowardly.
So you think it is setting a very dangerous precedent, I guess, to other authors?
I do. I think it sets a really dangerous precedent, although precedent's not really the right word, because we're well into the long trend of the sensitivity readers. The first thing to note is not one single Ukrainian will be saved. She won't make any difference to the course of the war in Ukraine. It's a completely futile gesture. And whereas she's known as the author of Eat, Pray, Love, which probably made her millions, you know, is she not rich enough? She's probably going to be known now as right, pander, self-censor. You know, the options for this are endless.
And you think...
I think the thing is, although, you know, this isn't a precedent, because you were talking about P.G. Wodehouse earlier. Just recently, the sensitivity readers completely vandalised Roald Dahl's texts. References to fat kids were removed, which will make no real-life difference to the body mass index of any children. Terry Jones, Monty Python creator, famously said they could never get away with making The Life of Brian now. Andrew Lloyd Webber was in the news this week for saying he wanted to produce a new musical, but it wasn't set in this country, and he was told he can't produce a musical set in another country. Back in 2018, the fantastic author Lionel Shriver was warning about sensitivity readers and cultural appropriation. And she said that fiction would become homogenous, dreary and timid. Well, we're there. We are we're constantly reducing the limits of what's acceptable, but not only acceptable, we're reducing our own horizons of what's exciting and what's possible.
And do you think that there is a way out here? I mean, is it the authors need to get a backbone? Is it the publishing houses need to let the authors just be authors? How are we going to get out of this?
I think it's all of us. You know, we all need to show courage, and that does include the writer. Now, I don't have Elizabeth Gilbert's fame or standing, but I don't think I've published a book which has been without controversy, and I've survived. You know, here I am talking about authors. I think she should have ridden this out, and she would have got a lot more respect. So the way out of it is for limp-wristed authors, weak-kneed publishers to show some backbone, get rid of the sensitivity readers. They're not making books better. We don't need warnings at the beginning of P.G. Wodehouse or Nancy Mitford or Roald Dahl. What it does is really degrade the idea of the mind. It insults the intelligence of the reader. People are quite capable of reading books, consuming ideas, and coming out of it better, not weaker.
Yeah, I mean, is there an argument that she's maybe just been a little bit too protected? Because I read that what she was kind of initially saying was that it's really hard to receive criticism. And I guess if she got so much positive feedback from her first book, or from the Eat, Pray, Love, that just getting any blowback is enough. Do you think that maybe authors should be toughened up, something, go on a course? Just have people shouting at them. What they could do, of course, is come on GB News and state their opinion, and they'll get lots of lovely tweets if you try and attack Trump. Anyway,
she could start with reading George Orwell's alternative preface to Animal Farm. He talked about the renegade liberal. You know, bad regimes, bad totalitarian regimes ban books. But the problem, you know, one of the peculiar phenomena of our time is the intelligentsia voluntarily censor themselves. We're banning our own books. So she needs to step away from the path of the renegade liberal and grow some backbone.
And perhaps rewrite this book so it gets better reviews. Can you tell us quickly about your new book?
Yes, I've got a new book out in July called Free Your Mind. Basically, after a state of fear, which was my reaction to the epiphany of lockdown, that so many of our freedoms were illusory and governments wielded propaganda to make people follow the rules, I teamed up with an ex-Cambridge Analytica psychologist, very talented psychologist called Patrick Fagan. And what we want is for people to feel psychologically resilient and learn how to deflect the myriad of manipulations. You know, this is a show called Free Speech Nation, but the fact is that free speech means little without free minds. And we both believe that minds are wondrous and don't need to be protected from language in books of 50 years ago, that we need to learn how to recognise and deflect the attempts at manipulation and be sovereign of our own minds.
And do you, what quick tip could you give us how to get to that point?
Read books. Read lots of books.
And deliberately read books that will challenge you? I
think you should constantly be consuming a variety of news sources and reading books. Reading through printed material is the best way to inform your mind rather than pictures and videos. We do have chapters on screens, on TV and social media, but it's also about psychological principles. It's about learning how to recognise the ways in which you'll be manipulated, often through emotion. If you look at Elizabeth Gilbert's response, it's really dripping with emotion. She hasn't made an intellectually well thought out response to publishing a book.
So first step is to free your mind is to buy and read your book, Free Your Mind.
That's an excellent first step. I like it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming in. Laura Dodsworth.